Hello, I'm Jason Lin from Jinhua Foreign Language School, and obviously I'm a high school student, but that's not important. For today's topic, I would like to talk about the cloth that changes the world, which is called the facial mask. For today's contents, we have introduction, the research question, the methodology, analytical results, and the implication for the study I dive into. And let's just start with the first part, which is the situation before the pandemic, like the time period between the 2018 to the second half of the 2019. Before the pandemic in China, we just have foreign enterprises, state-owned enterprises, private enterprises, and civil-run enterprises make up the whole market. And as we can see from the competition state graph in the picture, it is this foreign enterprises that takes up the most part of the market, which means that it is the foreign enterprises that takes up all the most part of the core technology, and which is also a point that Chinese enterprises still needs to catch up. And foreign brand mask enterprises occupy the advanced product market of the Chinese mask industry. And free trade, though, just has distributional consequences, which is beneficial to the whole economy. And although China is the main exporter of masks in the world, some high-standard products still needs to be imported from overseas in large quantities. And the domestic competition is just pretty fierce. And during the pandemic, since the COVID-19 occurred so abruptly at the end of the 2019, there's basically no time for government to make policies in time to boost the production. At the same time, the civil-run enterprises just reached their climax. Considering the huge benefits myriad factories are trying to get into the mask industry. And luckily, there is a brand new factory that I will talk about later as my research. Before that, let's just look at the graph, which is called the amazing Chinese speed. In Chinese, it's called the Huoshenshan Hospital, which is actually a hospital that was built in just within the 10 days, which is actually a magic. And also, since the critical COVID-19 period just began around the Spring Festival in China, most of the factories were closed and workers were all at home, which means a pretty limited ability for manufacturing facial masks. And with civil demand increasing unprecedentedly, masks, both from online stores and physical stores, were all sold out just within a few days. And what was surprising was that there were even cheaters popping up for filthy lucre, and some pharmacies even hiding the prices from a few cents to dozens of dollars per mask. And as the pandemic reached the climax, the government just took in a huge part of the job. More and more factories run by officials were playing an important role in protecting civil's health. For the whole market of personal protective equipment, unluckily, enterprises just run by civil just could not simply make the same amount of money as usual, since the standard of producing masks was limited and the number of factories for making masks was also limited. And what's more, experiencing the huge quantity of masks purchased from the government, prices of raw materials, labors, products, and plants were becoming profitless. So that's why actually, indeed, it's actually very, very difficult for all those factories to run by civil to make the same amount of money as usual. And let's now look at the words within an orange background, which are the main regions for produced masks. In middle region, we have Hunan province, Hubei province. In eastern region, we have Canton province, Jiangsu province, Shandong province, and in western, we have Sichuan province. All those regions are all have suitable conditions for mask making, just like their local environment, temperature, technology levels, labor, population, and productivity These are all things that could become their absolute advantages. And as for the requirements, if you are really into making the masks, actually you could take them as your reference. The main permission you need to have is as follows. For those medical and professional protection masks requirements have become stricter and can vary from country to country. Just like in America, a certificate from NOSH and FDA is needed. In Europe, CE requirement is needed. And in China, you need to possess medical equipment production and national industrial goods production certificate, all given by government after censorship, which is pretty strict. And here we have come into the main question that I dive into. It's actually about how public health equipment react to the pandemic. During the COVID-19 period, since the GDP's growth rate, the unemployment rate, the economic sizes of China were all severely impacted, civil-run industry had to shoulder a part of responsibility to guarantee public health. Whereas from little to no studies have been done to explore how the whole factory process and the critical days. An understanding of this issue would definitely prove to be extremely important to the political economy of the world health. And luckily, my parents just run a similar mask producing mask factories. With the question above, I just completed a survey with some of their workers. And the main interviewee is the sales manager Qing Wenzhou, who is the main leader in the team and is also responsible for processing chain and the selling channels. For the rest, we have fundamental producing and assembling workers, the main and the middle supervisor, the manager, the HR, and etc. And the main methodology I use is called the survey, and there is a noticeable point that the ways I collect all qualitative data from the factory are all through in-depth and focus group interviews, which could yield the interviewees the most authentic answers deep inside their heart. And for the summary of the survey and the research, there are answers from 15 individuals differently. And from these individuals are from fundamental producing workers to administrative employees. And each individuals are assigned with different questions such as their positions, motives for getting to the industry, the permission required for performing the industry, the main differences between these and a manufacturing industry, the main challenges and reactions, the government returns, the employee training processes, and etc. And each person is needed to give ratings from -10 to 10 about whether they are negatively or positively impacted by the pandemic. Okay, and next, here are some pictures that I took from the factories, from the factory that I studied the question. And according to my survey, as you can see from the graph, as you can see from the picture, a large amount of money is invested into elevating the standard of machines, technologies, and plants so that the factories could be more trustworthy and more bills may come. And for the results, the main point I want to say that even though the pandemic started up around Spring Festival, a period that workers nearly were not willing to leave their home at the risk of their lives to work, there were still myriad workers devoting themselves into the industry. And according to my survey, seeing from the whole picture, this industry had just benefited largely from selling PPEs to not only domestic buyers but also international purchasers, at the same time of being manipulated with robustness. This magnificent accomplishment was achieved both by the efficient work from all employees and organized arrangements from the leaders. However, unluckily, as I conduct the face-to-face communication with several workers in the factory, there was a set point that the major motive for them to come out to work was because they just feel like earning the tempting salary. given out by the corporation. Clearly, we, as a part of China, still needs to develop the patriotism heartily. And awareness for caring the well-being of China still need to be rising up among the public. And of the equal importance is that the facial masks and other PPEs were resold with the prices many more times over its original price among the civil and even doctors, which was an abnormal phenomenon that we should keep away from. And last but not least, China, without a doubt, played a vital role in fighting against the pandemic. Clearly, we can see that the Chinese global status has been rising, and at the same time of protecting itself, China just has contributed a large quantity of PPEs and tags to the outsiders, which also well indicates the responsible and friendly appearance of the country. And last, for the research implications. After I finished my survey, I clearly find out that the basic reactions of a industry are extremely robust to the pandemic. And the next step I want to focus is on how China will deal with overloaded masks produced during the pandemic when it's over, and what are major mechanisms will China use. And in the pandemic, I have spotted that there were thousands of resellers popping out to earn filthy lucre and give basically no care to the conditions of China. So I feel like devoting myself into ethical views about what are the major causes that would lead to these circumstances above, and more specifically, the personality test under the influence of pandemic and money. And what economics phenomenon would appear or lead to the radical emotional change? And here we are at the end of the presentation, and thank you all for watching my presentation, and I hope you all have already learned about something about the Chinese reactions toward the pandemic. And that's all. Thank you guys.